Hi, it's Naomi Nigor here, and I'm absolutely delighted that you've joined me today. In this video, we're going to be describing and exploring the nuts and bolts of your freedom steps, which is the method that I've created and that I use to guide and support many people, both individually and in group programs, to find freedom from any compulsive or addictive behavior. But before I do that, I'm going to reverse a little bit and describe some of my journey and experience, because actually that is the foundation and root of my creation of Your Freedom Steps. So I was struggling with overeating, lots and lots of sugar, lots of refined carbohydrates, lots of flour, where flour and fat and salt and sugar meet. I'm sure many of you have had this experience too. And also lots of behaviors that felt very compulsive and addictive, which included fantasizing about my Prince Charming and how he would come and rescue me, obsessing about my body weight, exercising compulsively to keep my weight down, and lots of drama and chaos when it came to my financial life and my earning capacity. And all of these addictive, compulsive experiences over which I was powerless combined to create a life that felt in many ways really quite stuck. And from that stuck place, I found just the smallest seed of openness to embrace three very essential elements that have remained with me for over 10 years now, almost 15 years since I found the freedom that I sought, and still remain an integral part of my life, of my health, of my self-care. So what are those three elements? Well, the first one is 12-step recovery. This was an absolute life giver and lifesaver in my life at the time. And at the same time, there were elements in the 12-step method which didn't quite jive with me. And I think I probably would have walked out of the door after just a few meetings had I not had the support of the other two elements that I'm going to describe. One being internal family systems therapy, and the other being something called embodied mindfulness. Now, these two latter elements are things that I've since made a huge part of my life, retrained in, became a therapist in both of these areas. And I could, even back then, through being guided by teachers that I trusted in both of these elements, start to apply these tools and methods to my experience going through the 12 steps. So I could be aware of what was happening, what was unfolding in my body as I made these positive changes. And I could also be aware of the different parts of me, which is something that internal family systems, or IFS, supports awareness of. The way that different parts of me were actually reacting and responding to the 12-step experience. Now, since then, I've worked to help hundreds and hundreds of women also get free from any compulsive or addictive behaviors to do with their food and their body weight and their body image. And I find similarly that when we engage in a group process like 12-step or a spiritual process, we need as much support and guidance to help us manage the changes that are happening in our own bodies, in our own minds, in our own spirits, in our own souls. And this was certainly true for me. One thing that I struggled with about the steps is that as they're written, they're quite old-fashioned. So the literature sometimes was something I butted up against, and particularly as quite an ardent feminist woman, or someone that just strongly believes that we're all equal no matter what our gender or no gender, I found it quite exclusive. And of course, it's very old-fashioned, but it was a real block to me in being able to access the actual beauty and essence of the 12 steps and the way in which the 12 steps help us reconnect with ourselves, reconnect with different parts of us that have become exiled or burdened, and reconnect with the people in our lives and the support networks that are available to us, both in our families, in our communities, and in our universe and in our nature. So these were blocks at the time that I needed internal family systems to help me support. And that's why I became really passionate about combining all of these three methods for people that are finding themselves in quite a stuck place when it comes to feeling free. They might have tried the 12 steps, they might have tried therapy, they might have tried all sorts of different coaching programs or treatment programs to try and get free. And yet there's a potent opportunity for a combination of different modalities here that I believe is pretty transformational for anyone, as long as they have just that little bit of openness, willingness, and readiness to start to make some easeful and positive shifts in their lives. So I'm so grateful for this paradigm of internal family systems therapy and embodied mindfulness that helped me to process my experience of change through the 12 steps. And I've now called this combination Your Freedom Steps. And what really identifies as different from these different unique perfect modalities that are perfect in themselves is that really all parts of us are welcome in this process of spiritual change. No part of us is considered evil or bad or wrong or the disease, because it understands, as IFS, Internal Family Systems, does, that we're all trying to protect ourselves, and parts of us use really outdated behaviors like addictive or compulsive behaviors to try and do just that. They're not bad, they're working really hard and they're slaving away to keep us actually in that place of balance, even if it doesn't actually feel so balanced for us, with criticism of what we're doing, self-criticism, and the shame of how it feels when we're caught in the same cycle. Even though we make resolves, we can feel actually pretty discouraged, and even parts of us can criticize us and call us a failure, which can increase our sense of shame. So this is about finding the easiest, quickest, most supportive way and most sustainable way out of those negative cycles of compulsion and addiction. So this 12-step process, what is it that I love about it? And what is it that I find a little bit tricky? Well, what I love about the 12-step process is that it's a community experience. It's an experience where we're encouraged to actually join with other people and have other people be a part of our freedom experience. And I think that that's something that IFS, which is much newer than the 12 steps, of course, has a little bit of catching up to do with, in order to create communities of people that have experiences like mine with overeating chocolate cake and cakes and cookies and binging on those things, to link us with people that have similar parts, because there's something extremely spontaneously shame diminishing about realizing that I'm not the only one that does that thing. There are other people, and I needed likewise to hear that from people that had sort of a tendency to romantically fantasize or think that their Prince Charming or Princess Charming was on her or his way. And I think that that's essential, to have those networks of people that understand and that can give us hope, that have walked the path of freedom. So that's one thing that I think the 12 steps really, really has. And IFS has a little bit of catching up to do. And also we as potentially compulsive addictive people, it's probably not enough for us to just have one weekly therapy session in order to get as free as we need to as quickly as possible. We probably need more of a community experience and more support through the week between our therapy sessions. So, of course, if we're in treatment, we might be having more regular therapy sessions, internal family systems therapy sessions if we're lucky. But actually, if we're not so lucky and we're just expected to find freedom through 1 hour once a week, then if, like mine, our compulsive parts are quite strong and they're quite active, then it's unlikely that we're going to find the level of support right at the beginning quickly in order to find those shifts and changes. And so that's another area where 12-step can be really, really helpful. But like I said, there are some real kind of, I guess in some ways, some cons to the 12-step experience, in my opinion. One is that I feel that actually some of the language is quite exclusive and even gives us the impression that we've done something wrong, so that parts of us that already feel quite ashamed of themselves and like a failure can sort of take that language on and sort of take it the wrong way. So that's words like moral, wrongs, shortcomings, dishonest, selfish, self-seeking. And there is, of course, a seed of truth in all of these words, but when we have protective parts of us that are trying to protect shame, they can tend to get angry and sort of almost react or rebel against this sort of language, which makes it actually really difficult for us to access some of the wonderful teachings that there are of basically unburdening that shame within and inherent within the 12 steps. So ultimately, for me, the 12 steps was insufficient. I needed internal family systems and embodied mindfulness in order to unburden some of the parts of me that were really right at the heart of my addiction and compulsions and help them get free. And it's totally possible that these parts can get free for you too, when you have the right support, the right guidance to engage in all the wonderful ways that we can recover that are around us. So I absolutely encourage you to reach out if you have any questions at all about what I've shared in this. If you have any comments at all as well, I love to stay connected and hear from other people, particularly if you feel a bit stuck or you're not confident that you can make changes. Maybe you've tried some different things and they didn't quite work for you. I absolutely know that even though your hope might be quite low right now, that there is hope, because I certainly didn't have any willpower or any extra superpowers at all. And through the gentle and consistent application of the different very healing methods that I found and that I've now integrated into this healing modality called Your Freedom Steps, there is certainly a way to be free starting from today. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts and your questions, and for our paths to meet very soon on this wonderful path of freedom.